My name is Margaret. I'm 68, but I feel 90. I carry 32 years of solitary motherhood on my back. I've been a mother and a father. I've been a base. I've been a foundation. I've been the ground. And in the end, I became dust. After the stroke, the world I knew dismantled like those market stalls at the end of the day, when the sun is beating down and the shopkeepers barely look at what they're storing. The body stopped responding on the left side. His speech was slurred, the head heavy, and my eyes were always looking for someone who wasn't coming. My son, Daniel, was born when I was 36. It was a lonely pregnancy. His father left my life like someone who leaves a wedding through the back door, without making a sound, without leaving a note. I only found out I was pregnant because I started vomiting every day at 6 a.m. I took the test in hiding, in the bathroom of a public library in Cincinnati, shaking like I was about to rob a bank. But I didn't rob anything. I only inherited a destiny that I didn't choose, but I embraced with strength. I raised Daniel alone. I worked as a nursing assistant in the early hours of the morning with no health insurance, no guarantees, just a pair of calloused hands and a heart that beat quietly. The money always ran out before the end of the month, and the bills were paid with sweat, backache, and tears that I swallowed at dawn so as not to wake him. Daniel never knew that I ate only rice and eggs for days on end, so that he could have a snack at school. He never knew that I sold my graduation ring to pay for his soccer uniform in high school. He never knew because he never asked. And that's fine. It was my job, right? That's what a mother is, isn't it? She's the one who holds everything together, the one who listens to the world's nonsense and still apologizes for not smiling enough, the one who blames herself for not giving more, even when she has nothing left to take. The problem is that time takes its toll. The body takes its toll. Life, that merciless scoundrel, arrives with its high-interest bill. And it came for me one morning in January. I was washing dishes. I heard a buzzing in my ear, and the sink started to move away. The next thing I knew, I was lying on the floor, the water pouring into the kitchen and my left arm, useless, hanging like a dry branch. My mouth was tingling. I tried to scream. A strange sound came out, as if my tongue had turned to stone. It was 5 hours on the floor before my neighbor, Judith, realized something was wrong. She was the one who called the ambulance. She was the one who saw me being dragged out on a stretcher, with my eyes wide with fear. My son? He was at work, but that wasn't what hurt. It hurt to know that even after the hospital, he didn't show up. He sent his daughter-in-law, and that's when everything started to fall apart. She entered the room like someone entering a restaurant. She spoke to the nurse, grabbed a chair, and started scrolling through Instagram. When the doctor came in and explained that I would have limitations, that I might need a caregiver and adaptation at home, she simply closed her cell phone and said, "But she lives alone, right? That's going to be complicated." There was no, "Let's see what we can do." There was no, "She can stay with us for a while." There was just that, discomfort, as if I were a package that was difficult to ship. The visit lasted 14 minutes. Counted. And before she left, she looked at the doctor and uttered the phrase that still echoes in my head, like a curse. "She's going to become dead weight. It's already starting." My son called the next day. His voice was low, hurried. He said they were looking at options. "Homes," he said. "There are some good ones around here, with a TV in the bedroom and everything." And I, with my left side still numb, still trying to understand how to learn to walk again, could only say, "All right," because I didn't want him to see me as a burden, like the woman he needed to get away from. I was taken to one of these places 3 weeks later. A rental car, a small suitcase, and a note with an emergency number. I didn't even get to see their dog. And since then, I've been here, in this room, with no smell, with a plastic mattress and beige walls, where the clock seems to mock those who are still waiting for someone who promised to come back. Daniel hasn't come back. His daughter-in-law no longer answers. And I've learned to use my right hand to write, even though I'm shaking, because I need to write it down, so that someone will know, so that if one day I no longer remember who I am, at least these words will. I was a mother. I was someone, and I was left behind. The routine in here is made up of nothing and almost nothing. I wake up before the lights come on, not because I sleep well, but because my body no longer understands what rest is. The bed is narrow. There's plastic under the sheet that heats up when it's hot and freezes when dawn comes. The window doesn't open. It only tilts, and the air that comes in always seems to have passed through a filter of oblivion. The walls are the same color as the corridor, which is the same color as the cafeteria, which is the same color as the people who work here. Everything was kind of beige, kind of neutral, as if any brighter color could remind us of what was left outside. At first, I tried to strike up a conversation. I'd strike up a conversation with the girl who brought the coffee, the cleaner, the nurse on shift. I'd talk about my house, my neighborhood, the hydrangeas I grew in my backyard. But I soon realized that nobody cared. People here are in a hurry to finish their shift. Nobody listens to the stories of people who can no longer write new chapters. And the other patients, well, most of them are at some stage of disappearance. Either they're too sedated, or they've been sedated by life. Many no longer speak, others talk to themselves, and there are those who cry in the corridor as if they were remembering something they should never have forgotten. I listen. Sometimes I try to pretend it's not me, but it is. The meals come on trays: watery rice, unsalted minced meat, vegetables cooked until they're pured even though they're not. I eat slowly, more out of habit than hunger. I swallow the metallic taste of the food along with the shame of knowing that I'm here as someone left over, someone who has been taken out of the equation of their own family, someone who carried their son in their arms when he had a fever, who ran with him in their arms to the hospital when he cracked his jaw on the sidewalk at the age of 7, who sold their bicycle to pay for the English course he wanted, who worked twice as hard when he grew up, and 3 times as hard when he made a mistake. And now he says, it's a lot of responsibility. They visited me once, just once. They came on the 3rd Sunday of the month. Him, Daniel, and his wife. They brought a supermarket cake, a hot Coke, and a card with a generic signature. She spent more time looking at her cell phone than at me. He asked how I was with a tone that didn't require an answer. They said they were trying to get pregnant, and that's when everything became clear. I was the problem. A burden before the new beginning, an uncomfortable presence in the photo album. They wanted a clean, modern life, with a baby in beige clothes and a Pinterest room. And there I was, with half my face drooping, a geriatric diaper, and the smell of ointment. I didn't fit into that project. After that visit, nothing more. No phone call, no message. The phone here only rings when someone dies. A week ago, Mrs. Rose from the next room left. She was sitting at the bedside with her 2 children. One of them was holding her hand. I heard everything. I heard the sweet words. I heard the prayer. I heard the farewell. And I cried softly, on my back, because I'm too human not to envy an ending like that. Because what awaits me here is disappearance. The slow dissolution of someone else's memory. Complete oblivion. Like a book kept on a musty shelf that no one will ever open again. I've been writing letters, many of them. Some to Daniel, others to myself, as if I could convince my heart that he'll come back. I write apologizing for things I don't even know I did, asking him to take me home, if only for a weekend, for him to say something, that he'll remember. But I know that these letters will never be sent, not because I can't, but because I've understood that he doesn't want to receive them. I've understood that the role of mother, when it loses its usefulness, becomes just an uncomfortable memory. I've understood that it's easier for them to believe that I'm right here, well looked after, well accommodated, far away. I'm not fine. And not just because of the stroke. It's because I died before my body gave up, because I was buried alive in the basement of other people's convenience, because I was forgotten by those who fed off my memory the most. Because I became what I feared most, invisible. Today, when I see my image in the bathroom mirror, I hardly recognize it. My left side still doesn't respond. My hair is thinning, and my eyes have lost that sparkle of someone who believed in tomorrow. I still brush my teeth with effort, as if it were an act of resistance. I still wear lipstick sometimes, red, because it reminds me of who I was before I became just the lady in room 23. I wonder, sometimes for hours, if it would have been different if I had done less effort, less sacrifice, less love. Maybe if I had let Daniel miss the dentist when he was little. Maybe if I had ignored his high fever instead of rushing to the hospital in a cab. Maybe if I had said no more often, he would have learned to miss it, to appreciate it, to understand that care is a bond, not a service. But I didn't know how to do it like that. I was taught that to love was to give until it hurt. So I gave, until the end, until I had no more. Now I'm left with the accounts of abandonment, the silence that comes through the windows in the afternoon and hangs on the wall like a shadow. I spend my days between the smell of disinfectant and the repeated voices on the news. The television in the cafeteria is on all day at too high a volume. Nobody watches it, but it seems that someone has decided that noise prevents sadness from screaming. Nonsense. Sadness here doesn't scream. It whispers. She walks around in slippers. She runs her hand through my hair at night and asks me, "Why are you still waiting?" I wait because I don't know how to live without waiting. Because if you're a mother once, you never unlearn this cursed habit of waiting for someone to come to the door, even though that door only opens for technical visits, to deliver food, or to collect a body. One night, one of those nights when sleep refuses to come, I dreamt of him, Daniel. He was small again, sitting on the sofa in his dinosaur pajamas, holding a glass of chocolate milk. He looked at me with eyes that were too big for his face and said, "I love you, Mommy," in that little voice of a child who hasn't yet learned to lie. I woke up crying so much that I wet the whole pillow. It was just a dream, but it hurt like the truth, and it hurts because I remember everything. Every sleepless night when he had colic, every school meeting I went to in uniform straight from duty, every Christmas when I did magic with Little just to see a smile on his face. It hurts because I was everything, and now I'm nothing, not even a mother, no reference, no memory, just a name on a chart. The other day, a new nurse came to give me a bath. She was young, with her hair up in a bun and her nails painted light blue. She treated me with polite haste. She did everything right, but without a glance. At the end, as he helped me into my nightgown, he casually commented, "You have a son, don't you? Doesn't he ever come?" I shook my head. I don't know if it was denial or pain. She scowled, apologized, and left quickly. And I stood there, in my bathrobe, alone, staring at the wall and thinking that maybe that's what I am now. A case that embarrasses the caregiver. A story that nobody wants to hear because they know where it will end, in silence. I sometimes receive letters from the city hall, offers of help that arrive months late, impersonal protocols, cold forms. The only letters with my name on them now are bills. Paid by whom? I don't know. Maybe the government, maybe some fund. But it's not my son, that's for sure. And that burns, because I never let a bill go over while I was raising him. I never let him go short. Not food, not presents, not affection. And today, I'm lacking. In everything. In routine, in memories, in prayers. I even miss the photos of the new house, which I saw by chance on Facebook, when a volunteer left her cell phone on the chair and the notification appeared on the screen. Family photo. Him, his wife, and a newborn baby. A boy. Healthy. Perfect. And there I was, on the other side of the screen, forgotten like old clothes left in the laundry. I didn't cry. Not at that moment. I cried later, in the bathroom, with the door locked and the water in the sink turned on to stifle the sobs. I cried because I didn't know my grandson's name, for not being told that he was born, for not even being invited to the ultrasound. I cried because I understood once and for all that I had died for them, that I had been replaced, erased, excluded from the narrative. And I wondered, as I so often do, what I had done so wrong. Is loving too much a mistake? Could it be that giving up everything, without charging anything, is the shortest way to be forgotten? Because that's what I did. I loved until I disappeared. And now, that's all I am. A body that survives. A soul that watches its own end in slow motion. No one enters. No one calls. No one waits. They call me Mrs. Margaret here. Some say Mrs. Margie. Others just say she. They move me around as if I were a sick plant. They feed me, change me, turn me on my side. But nobody asks how I am, how I really am, because nobody wants to know. Because those who have already been left have nothing more to tell. But I write. I write like someone who begs to exist, like someone who tries to leave at least a trace that they were someone. Because that's the worst death, the one that comes before the end, the one that steals everything and leaves no name behind. And I refuse to accept that disappearance. Even if it's on paper, I want to remain someone, the mother I was, the woman I fought to be, the human who, despite everything, still feels. Time doesn't pass here. It stagnates. It stalls on the hands of the clock in the common room, the one that ticks too loudly, as if it were mocking those who wait. There's no difference between Tuesday and Saturday. The mornings are all the same. The evenings, too. The only thing that changes is the shift worker's outfit. Faces are changed, routines are repeated, and I, sitting in this vinyl armchair, observe everything like someone watching their own existence evaporate, little by little, like when you forget the taste of a food that was once your favorite. There are days when no one says my name. Not once. They call me with, "Ma'am," "Come on, dear," or just the sound of the wheels of the bath chair approaching. And off I go, like a domesticated animal. No questions asked, no wishes, as if any trace of my personality had been left outside that white door that closes every night with a dry click. I no longer have any belongings. There are no material memories. My photo albums, my books, my silverware that I inherited from my mother, everything has been given away, forgotten, discarded. The daughter-in-law said there was no room. Daniel didn't argue. I still remember my living room, the flowered curtains, the sofa with the beige blanket I made myself, the vase with the orchids that I looked after, as if they were people. That's where I sat at night with a cup of tea while I read. It was there that I dreamed of the days when I would have a grandchild on my lap. I used to dream a lot. That's the problem with love. It makes us fantasize that the return is natural, that if you give everything, one day it will come back. But love has no guarantee, and sometimes it never comes back. It stays with those who received it, and the giver is emptied to the end. The other day, a new lady came into the next room. She has Alzheimer's. Her daughter came to leave her. She spent a whole hour organizing her belongings, hanging pictures on the walls, explaining her medication, her quirks, and her schedule to the staff. Then she cried. She sobbed, sitting next to her mother, her head resting on her shoulder, even though she knew that her mother might no longer remember who she was. Even so, she stayed. Even so, she loved. I watched it all through the crack in the ajar door, and I felt envious of her pain, of her love, because even their farewell had more dignity than my silence. I had no farewell. I was pushed into this place like an old, out-of-place, uncomfortable piece of furniture. There was no letter. There was no conversation. There was no hug. Just an envelope with documents, and the phrase uttered by the daughter-in-law, "She'll be fine here," right? As if my well-being was a favor she was doing herself. As if I didn't even have the right to exist with a name and a history. And that phrase has haunted me ever since. "She'll be fine here." As if I were a plant. As if all I had to do was water myself, and that would be that. I'm not fine here. I've never been well. Here, we wait for death politely. We die slowly, quietly, without fanfare. We are trained not to cause it, not to ask, not to disturb. And yet I wake up every day with the damned hope of hearing the doorbell. To see Daniel walk in with that hurried gait, carrying a bag of cookies from the bakery. He liked those cookies when he was a child. He preferred the carrot one. I used to make them almost every week. To this day, the smell of baking takes me apart. But he doesn't come. and the phone doesn't ring. And the world goes on, out there, with its priorities, its data plans, its condominium meetings, and its organic fairs. I've been forgotten by my own family, and that's a death worse than any illness. Because I'm still alive. I still feel. I still hope. I still love. I still write, even if only to myself. And that's what nobody understands. That absence doesn't kill love. It just turns it into pain. This week, a social worker came to see me. She said she needed to update the register. She asked me how I was related to my legal guardian. I said, "My son." She paused. She asked for his name? I answered. She typed it in. Then she looked at me hesitantly and asked, "Has he been coming often?" I didn't answer. I just stared at the floor. She understood. She closed her laptop and thanked me. But before she left, she said something that kept reverberating in my head. "You know, Mrs. Margaret, it's not unusual. Many children can't cope. They can't cope. As if taking care of those who raised you was too complicated an equation. As if love had hidden clauses that exempted the party that received the most. Sometimes, I wonder what the end will be like, if someone will be with me, if someone will hold my hand, or if it will be like every other day, with me staring at the white ceiling, listening to the ticking of a tired clock, and waiting for someone who won't come. I wonder if they'll remember to bury me with my name, if they'll put a photo on the headstone, if they'll at least say that I was a mother. Because if I'm not even that, then I was nothing. And yet, even with all this, there are nights when I take pen and paper and write letters that begin with, "My dear son." I still use that expression, darling, as if the word had the power to take everything back to the beginning, as if it opened a crack in his heart, as if what happened between us could still be undone with a hug. But it won't. I know that. It's just that it's the only way not to go mad. Write, because if I don't write, I forget who I am. And forgetting is the last step before disappearing completely. Tonight, the wind was stronger. The trees outside the building swayed with a noise that sounded like crying, a slow, melancholy dragging. It was cold, even with the blankets. And it wasn't just on the body. The cold came from the inside, like a crack that won't close anymore. The night shift carer came by and asked if I wanted another blanket. I refused. It wasn't a blanket I needed. It was a hug that wouldn't come. It was a presence that couldn't be bought, couldn't be prescribed, couldn't be replaced by protocols. I needed someone to remind me that I existed beyond this bed, this diaper, this room. Today marks exactly 2 years since the day they left me here. They haven't forgotten the day. No, they just chose to ignore it. I know, because one of the nurses let it slip, that the chart has notes with dates marked on them. Everything recorded, everything duly updated. That's what I'm left with, being a piece of data in a system, a number that takes up space, a name that serves to identify the body. But beyond that, beyond what you see, who cares? 2 years in which no phone calls have come. 2 years in which no letter was sent back. 2 years in which my name hasn't been spoken outside these walls. I don't even wait for the doorbell anymore. I no longer listen for footsteps, thinking they're his. I've learned that hope also gets tired. It fades, like a forgotten candle, until there is no flame left, just a shrunken wick, burnt out from trying so hard to illuminate those who never wanted to see. All the letters I wrote are still tucked away in the dresser drawer. Some are already yellowed. All of them without an envelope, without a real addressee. I think deep down I knew from the start that no one would read them. I wrote them anyway, because writing was the only way to breathe in a place where life seems to be dragging towards its end in slow motion. Sometimes I reread one or the other, and I don't recognize my own handwriting. My hand is no longer steady. The strokes have become crooked, irregular, like my story. But even so, each word carries weight, and the greatest weight is always the same: absence. This week, the lady in the next room died. It happened at dawn. Nobody noticed right away. They only noticed because she didn't show up for coffee. When they opened the door, she was there, with her eyes closed, her hands clasped over her chest, as if she was waiting for someone who never came. I didn't know her well, Sometimes we saw each other in the corridor. She would say good morning to me in a weak voice. Now her room is empty, clean, ready for the next person. And that's it. That's life here. Replaceable, practical, quick. Whoever leaves becomes space. And the space is soon filled. I've thought about it a lot. What will become of me when my turn comes? Who will hold my hand? Who will know that I liked mint tea and slept better with instrumental music? Who will say that I was a mother, that I loved, that I cried for years for someone who never came back? Who will put my name on a cold stone, knowing that behind it was a woman who tried to be everything to a son who wanted to be nothing to her? I have no answers, but I do have fear. The fear that all this will end in absolute silence. That the last thing I see is the white ceiling and the eyes of someone in a hurry to finish another shift. And that, no matter how much I try to accept it, still terrifies me. Not because of death, but of dying without ever having been seen as someone who mattered again. Because deep down, even after everything, there's still a part of me that screams, that begs, that wanted just once to hear from him. Mom, forgive me, but he won't come. And I'm no longer waiting for him with the same heart, not out of anger, but because it's reached the point where even the pain settles. And that, perhaps, is the greatest tragedy of all. When the love that's left turns into a memory that you keep in a corner of your soul, neatly folded, like the clothes of a child who's never coming back. This afternoon, the volunteer who organizes the activities brought a blank piece of paper and asked us to draw something that reminded us of our family. Some drew houses, flowers, trees, with names written on the branches. I just held the pencil for a while and then leaned against the paper. I just stood there, and I didn't draw anything, because sometimes not drawing is the only drawing possible. And in the end, when she collected the papers, mine was the only blank one. She looked at it, smiled sadly, and said, "It's okay. Sometimes emptiness speaks too." She doesn't know, but the emptiness has been screaming at me every day. Only nobody listens. Because in here, anyone who shouts too much is immediately medicated, and those who keep quiet are treated as solved cases. So I keep quiet. I keep quiet so I don't get doped up. I shut up, because there's no one to listen. The last thing I wrote today, before turning out the light, was this: if I die tomorrow, leave this letter nearby. Let someone know that here lived a woman who loved until she was forgotten, who was a mother, who was whole, and who left like someone who was never sought after. And maybe, one day, someone will read it. Maybe someone will cry, or maybe they won't. But if anyone is reading it now, know I existed. And if you like this video, don't forget to leave your like and your opinion here in the comments.